Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this postmortem of my Blitz game number 857. My opponent started off with e4 here, and I went e5, going for one of the classical positions. And instead of going with knight f3, the main move here, he played he played knight c3, the Vienna game. The other choices here are f4, the king's gambit, or bishop c4, the bishop's opening. But the Vienna game here with knight c3 is pretty interesting. Let's see, I continued with the main move here, which is knight f6. Just, you can actually develop either knight in that position. You're not really attacking this pawn since it's already defended, but you are developing your king side pieces so you can castle in a hurry, and that's very useful often in these double king's pawn openings. So I think that's why this move is preferred. And then he played d3, which is a really rare move in this position. If white plays knight f3, then that just transposes into a four knights defense after knight f3 and knight to c6. That's the four knights. And g3 I'm not all that familiar with. That might be an interesting move to look at. But the main moves actually after knight c3, from my perspective anyway, are f4 and bishop to c4. f4, this is one of the main ideas of the Vienna game, which is to try and get a position of the king's gambit where the knights have already been developed. And there's one point I want to make here, because I learned this lesson the hard way. In this position, you have to respond with d5. Otherwise, you can end up, maybe there are other playable moves. Maybe have to reply is the wrong way to put it. But it's the best move here is to play d5. You need to counter attack in the center right away, because white is playing very aggressively, and he will get a very strong attack going quickly if you don't respond appropriately. So put that pawn in the center, and then a typical response is like this. He can take your e-pawn. You can take his e-pawn. Notice your d-pawn is defended by the knight, and so his knight is, he can trade off some more, but this is a playable position for black, and otherwise you can get into a lot of trouble. I thought I would take some time going over the opening because this game was kind of short. So the other line I looked at, which I have not seen in practice, I have seen f4, but bishop c4 also looked like an interesting line. It's just a solid developing move, and white still has the option of playing f4 later at some point. So he can still get into those king's gambit types of positions. And black should probably just develop normally here with knight to c6. I did want to look at this one move with knight takes e4 because, whenever you have this center fork trick, it's always something to look at. The idea is that if knight takes knight, pawn takes, or pawn to d5, forks the two pieces and gets your piece back and leaves black in a pretty good position. But in this particular case, there's an interesting reply from white, which is queen to h5. So the queen and the bishop are ganging up on the f7 pawn. You play knight d6 here, defending that pawn, hitting the bishop, black can get his pawn back. I mean, he started off by sacrificing a pawn, so gets his pawn back this way. And after all the excitement, assuming everybody plays the correct moves, we end up in a position which is about even. The queens are off. Both sides have two pieces developed. And, white has to waste a move, retreating the bishop. I think the chess engine still gave a slight edge to white here, but it's nothing big. It's pretty much a playable position. So anyway, there's a couple of lines for you if you ever face the Vienna game. Something to look for. Let's see. So, but he didn't play any of those. He played d3, so we'll just continue with the game. I went knight c6, which is a reasonable developing move. It is possible already, you can see, to play d5, and I looked it up. That's, I checked it out with a chess engine, and that is a good move in this position. When you can get away with d5 in one of these king's pawn openings, that's usually a sign that black can equalize. Anyway, I went knight c6 here. That's also a good move. And he went h3, and after that we're just out of the book. Once again, I could play d5 here, but I went with bishop c5. It's also good. So, black I think has some slight edge here. I'm just playing more actively than white. White has got a solid center, but has kind of wasted a move over here on the king side. So slight edge to black here. And he continues with bishop e3, which and the chess engine thinks I should just take there, and it gives me almost a +1 advantage. I drop back, which also gives me an advantage, especially after he trades. And then he plays f4, and that's just a mistake. There's no other way to put it. I mean, he's trading off, he's playing this move after he's traded off his dark squared bishop, so he doesn't have any good follow-up. If I take here, he can't take back with the bishop and get that strong piece on the dark squares. He's creating dark squared weaknesses, but he's not in any position to exploit them. So this move is really just a mistake. I went ahead and took it. Went with queen f3. I went knight e5, hitting his queen. I wasn't worried about keeping the pawn. I was more worried about getting my pieces actively placed. And after he takes the pawn, I can bring the knight over here on the king side. I have to worry a little bit about a king side attack now that things have opened up. But as long as I keep kicking his queen around and I have enough pieces over here, I'm in good shape. And now I go ahead and go for the move d5. And this is still good, although I was a little bit worried about this line with e5. I was kind of relieved when he played knight b5. But the chess engine says I'm fine after e5. It recommends the move knight d7 here, just rounding that pawn up and actually giving up the d pawn. I was a little bit worried. I mean, that was the point of e5, as it chases my knight away from defense of the d pawn, and I thought I should hold on to it. But actually, after knight d7, he takes, I take. Apparently the best move for him is just to retreat the knight. So I guess the knight has nowhere good to go from there. And then I can castle, and I still have that lead in development, and the material is even, and of course white's king is exposed, although he could castle queenside and play on. So I don't know if it's such a huge advantage as the chess engine was implying, but it gives black a pretty good edge there. When I was talking about it during the game, I was actually thinking of the move queen to e7 in this position. After he pushes on and attacks my knight, I can pin it. And the chess engine says he can defend. And then I can play c6, defending my d-pawn. If he were to take my pawn here, oh, I can just take it. Yeah, that pawn is still defended at the moment. So yeah, he can't take there. So knight f3 makes sense. He's got to defend his pawn, and then that gives me a move to defend my pawn. And he still can't take my knight. Although if I go after that pawn, he can probably find a way to defend it. I thought this position was kind of unclear, and it's not as good. I think this is more equal, but the other line is still good for black if I just go knight d7 immediately, let him take, and then take the e-pawn and castle. Anyway, I didn't have to worry about that because he didn't play any of that. He played this knight b5 move. And, well, this move does win a pawn for white, and I had to think about this for a while to decide what the right response was. And eventually I decided just to castle. So it was nice to check this out later, and the chess engine recommends castling there as the best move, and significantly better than any of the alternatives. And it gives black, once again, a +1 advantage, even though black is down a pawn in this position. So it's just an example of how good development is worth a pawn or two. I have these two knights developed. I have my queen with some open squares and the bishop ready to jump into the game, and this rook, as a result of his earlier bishop exchanges. Rook is also on an open file, so rook a5 also top engine choice. It didn't really like knight takes c7 here at all. And so now it starts to give black a +2 advantage. So it's one of those games where my advantage just keeps going up and up as white just keeps playing, attacking moves, but not worrying about his own position. So b4 does nudge my knight. So I drop my rook to a4, and I'm attacking that pawn. Let's see, he went ahead and took. I took with the knight, and he keeps trading. His knight, one of his problems is his knight has nowhere to run, so that's why one of the reasons why this is such a good position for me is that his only developed piece, at least other than the queen, which is sitting over here on h2, his only other piece was trapped and had to be traded off, whereas I keep bringing my pieces forward. So just a winning position for black. He tried c4 here. I threw in this rook check. Always look for those little tempo moves to increase your development, especially if your opponent hasn't bothered to castle. He blocked, but now he's got a knight that I can pin. Played queen d4. I played queen d4 to attack his rook, which is loose in the corner, but queen takes d3. The chess engine gives that as even stronger. This is still winning, of course. Let's see, he went rook c1, and I grabbed this pawn. It wasn't about the pawn. What it was about was lining up with my pieces, attacking his knight. And there's really just no way out of this. I was sort of criticizing his play from this point, but actually he's already in such big trouble that he can't really do anything about it. He's going to lose material one way or another. Let's see, I played knight f4 here, just piling up on the pinned piece. Brought his queen over. I guess the idea is if he has enough time, maybe he can lift the rook and get another defender to help out his knight. But really, there's no more time here. And I just traded at this point and went to a simple position where I was a piece up. But there is a much stronger move here, so see if you can find the best move in this position. Okay, pause the video if you want time to think about it. I'm going to give the answer away now. The best move, and it's pretty obvious, I guess, is knight takes d3 check. Yeah, that pawn was not defended, and it's a check that hits the king and the queen. And the king has to move, so not only did I fork the king and queen, but the queen is totally undefended after that. And it gets worse, because in this position, the king has no moves, and mate is threatened. And there's actually no way to stop that. There's no move that can prevent mate here. So in fact, the move knight d3 check in this position, knight takes d3 check, is a mate in 3. It's not just winning the queen. So that's the quickest way to end this game. Anyway, like I said, I saw this, and in a blitz game, when you see a winning line, you tend to just go for it. He took. I just keep taking, and I end up with, I took with the a rook. End up with a piece up. Let's see, 3, 4, 5, 3, 4, 5, yeah. So pawns are even. I'm just a piece up, and his king is all exposed. So pretty simple win from here. He ran with king to g3, brought my other rook in. Just have to be careful about the back rank, so he can get tempo moves like putting the rook on an open file. Always watch out for these ideas, but as long as you've got forcing moves against his king with checks, he's got to respond to that first. Let's see, and then I took on d3. This is also about keeping control of these central files here, and also preparing to double my rooks. Let's see, he went rook h to d1, opposing the rooks here, and I went rook e to d2. One thing, once again, I have to worry about him getting a rook on the back rank, so I definitely need to stop him from trading and getting a rook on an open file. Although I still have time to respond to that, but this seemed like the most prudent response. He went rook e1 here, and then I went king f8, which stops his rook from coming in. Even stronger here is actually f6, which is funny. I mean, at first it looks like it's losing a piece, but this f6 move sets up mating ideas against his king, and it's just winning for that reason. And we see some of these same ideas later in the game, so we'll just go forward to that point. Let's see, I played king f8. He lifted his rook to e4, and then I played bishop e6. Yeah, that was a little bit slow. I actually did not need to develop my bishop. I could have directly gone for the kill with rook to h2 here. But anyway, I was happy to get my bishop to a protected square and off the back rank where I don't have to worry about it being forked and stuff like that. Let's see, after bishop e6 he went c5, and then I played rook to h2. And he took, and I played rook h takes h3, check, driving his king to the g5 square, and it's just a forced mate from this point. Now I play the f6 move. So a little slow with that idea, but I did eventually get there. And after his king goes to f4, the only square, I get to checkmate. So a nice game, and pretty interesting example of how White's early play, where he goes pawn hunting but neglects his own development. And he had opportunities to castle queenside. It might have turned into an interesting attack if he had managed to get that move in. But instead he went pawn hunting and got into trouble, well-deserved trouble. Okay, hope you guys enjoyed it, and see you later. Bye.